Grace stepped toward Tom and hugged him, stroking his sandy hair. All those fine promises. In a couple of weeks, once the weather was better, they'd join a wagon train west. That was the plan. She'd persuade one of the many parties of ill-matched emigrant wagons to let the two of them tag along. Maybe pay a mountain man to accompany them. By the fall, they'd be with their older brother Zachary in Oregon. What was left of their family finally together and safe. She would fulfill the promise made to her father on his deathbed. We've managed over the past few months, haven't we? And we're gonna keep on dealing with things together. She held him at arm's length and looked him straight in the eye. You've been the bravest boy. Pa and Ma would have been so proud of you. Tom wiped the back of his hand over his nose. What we gonna do? Grace let her arms drop. What were they going to do? She picked up the pistol, feeling the familiar weight of it in her hand, the barrel still warm. It was a damn fool thing to do, shooting him like that. But she'd pull the trigger again if she had to. We've no choice but to set off for Zachary's now. There's a wagon train leaving town in the morning. Grace's stomach clenched as she saw Tom's doubtful face. We'll be on it somehow. Go get dressed and pack everything in the trunk. We'll spend the rest of the night in the wagon. Tom ran back upstairs. Grace's hands shook as she wiped away the blood on the floor. She paused a moment. The man was still breathing, but his eyes remained shut. She needed to act quickly in case he woke. Grace gathered their few belongings into a canvas bag, the sewing box and woolen stockings she had been mending, a book with an iridescent feather marking her page, a small leather purse with savings. It did not take long. They had been traveling from town to town, and most of their possessions were in the wagon, ready for the long journey westwards once they secured a place on a train. She stood over the open gun case on the table and carefully placed the richly decorated pistol next to its twin. She hated those guns, and how they had caused her family to fall apart. But who could blame her for keeping them loaded when traveling alone? And not just alone, but with a brother who'd already lost so much and relied on her. Closing the lid, she slipped the wooden case into the canvas bag. Tom hauled the trunk down the stairs and across to the door. Wait! Grace glanced down at her apron and stared at the bloodstains in horror. She untied it and rolled it tight in a ball, shoving it in the stove, where it smoldered for a minute and then broke into a blaze. The golden light flickered over the man's body. Grace looked at where his belly pushed at the buttons of his greasy waistcoat, but she wasn't sure if she could see the chest rise and fall. She was too afraid to go close again and check. Tom slipped his hand into Grace's. What were you arguing about? Money again? Grace closed her eyes to shut out the memory. She'd paid him all the rent for this dump up front, and was justified in locking the door against him. It was darn stupid of her to think he didn't have another key. He'd forced his way in, steaming drunk, ranting about how a pretty girl shouldn't be alone, about him not getting his dues, insisting on more payment. Other payment. The kind that didn't involve coins. She put both hands to her mouth, as if praying. I'm so sorry, Tom. I tried to talk to him. He just... Grace's hands became fists as she battled to stop tears from falling. What if he don't wake up? I don't know. She took a deep breath and picked up one side of the trunk, waiting for Tom to take the other. She might be slender, but there were strong muscles under her demure dress. Come on. The Oregon Territory isn't part of the United States. There's no way they can bring me back. We get to Oregon, and we're safe. Grace wasn't sure if this was true, but tried to sound confident. She blew out the candle, opened the door, and stepped into the muddy alley. The streets of Independence were never completely quiet. Even in the early hours, the noise from saloons disturbed the corrals of horses, mules, and oxen, making them stamp and groan. Grace lay staring at the patch of indigo sky where the canvas flap on her wagon bonnet had come loose. Tom asleep beside her, under a blanket. She shivered and knew it wasn't the cold, but fear, still running through her.